Oh gosh, okay. I hate starting panels. I always think it's the worst part. It's like starting an essay. You're like, where do I start? So I guess we can start from the beginning. Hi, I'm Max. I'm also known everywhere as Random X Black X Cat. Been using that name since the birth of the internet, I feel. So if you ever see it, that's probably me. You can say, hey, I'm pretty friendly. I don't bite. So yeah, today we're going over on how to organize a local fur group. We got a lot of stuff to cover. I've updated some stuff because of the pandemic, because, it's a little bit different with the world being all crazy. This is also my first time doing a virtual panel, so we're just gonna see how it goes. If it sucks, that's fine. If it teaches you something, that's even better. So we'll be going over a lot today. I guess normally this panel doesn't last an hour because I have this cool Q&A section, but because of the way we're doing things, I'm going to try and cover like my most popular questions while I go over this, but if I ever forget anything, you guys can just contact me later. I'll have my contact info at the end, and then, you can ask me questions there, and I'm totally down to answer them. If I don't know the answer, I will look it up, or we can maybe figure out what the answer is together. So I'm going to go over the WNC Fur group history. I've been running that for a couple years now, and it kind of helps go over like how you start a group, what the different social platforms are. Go over how the first Furmeet went, because it's never the best one, but it's one that sticks with you. The different ways to plan a Furmeet, Furmeet tips, because there's actually a lot to it. It's not just, oh, we're meeting here. There's a little bit of finesse to it. Contacting the venues, dealing with the public, different types of people within groups, how to handle drama, because we all know furries love drama, and then being committed. And then I added a special pandemic virtual meets kind of version, because we can't meet like we normally do, but that doesn't stop us from still being social. Furries came from the internet. We will always live on the internet, and we're just, we're going to keep doing what we're doing. So the whole reason I even accidentally fell into this, because I didn't purposely set out to be running a furry group, especially a furry con eventually down the road. I did not mean for my entire life to revolve around furry the way it has. It pretty much started, I grew up kind of closer to Charlotte. Shout out to Charlotte, love them. And I was hanging out with Jasper, who used to run the Charlotte Fur group. They're really cool. They're actually one of our artists for BRFF. They're in the Dealer's Den. You should go check them out. Jasper Blue, they're really cool. Also check out our Dealer's Den if you haven't yet. Everyone's really great in there, and there's some really cool stuff. But yeah, they had like a pretty active group back in the day. They had like a picnic that you could go to, and they were always meeting at like a noodle house and stuff. And then when I graduated from high school, I came to college in Asheville, and I was looking for some friends. I didn't have any friends. I didn't know how to really start making friends. I had kind of always just kind of made friends pretty easily. And then when I came here, I was like, oh God, this is a whole new place, living in a dorm by myself. I don't know what I'm doing anymore. And so I started looking for some fur groups that were like active in the area, and I wasn't really finding any. Like there were some, but they like weren't active. And I was like, well, okay, I guess maybe if I just start reaching out to other furries and maybe finding some furries, that could be one way to like make some friends. And I heard that there was like about 200 furries in the area, which I totally didn't believe, but now I guess I have to believe, because there are probably about 200 furries in the WNC Fur group now. And so I just kind of made a Facebook page, started kind of reaching out to like those dead inactive groups, being like, hey, not trying to step on any toes, but you guys aren't really active, and I'm trying to look at starting it being active. And I originally called it the Asheville Anthros. I really like alliteration. It's one of my favorite things. And so we started finding some other furs that were kind of local, that were kind of active and stuff like that. So then that led me to finding two other people who were also like, hey, I don't really have friends in the area. One of them went to my college. They actually ended up helping start BRFF as well. And then the other one, I don't know if he's still in the fandom or not. I haven't talked to him in so long. All of this was like back in 2015, which is like another world at this point. And so we made a Facebook event, and we were like, okay, we're all gonna meet in the park and we're gonna see where that goes. So we put the link out. We were kind of encouraging some friends that we knew that weren't really furries, but we were like, hey, this. And they reached out to some cosplay friends, which apparently were, cosplay and furry have a lot of overlap. So that was kind of cool. We were starting to get more people in, and that was really exciting. And then it kind of turned into like this thing, like people were actually really excited to go and to be there, and we were like, oh, okay, cool. So like this is actually happening. Which leads us to the first Furmeet. It was kind of a disaster, kind of fun, kind of nerve-wracking, and honestly, it was just kind of cool all around. So the first Furmeet, we were like, okay, let's meet in the city park right in the middle of downtown. Everyone can come hang out. Bring your fursuit, bring your friends. We'll just have a good time. We'll just hang out. I brought some like card games, like Cards Against Humanity, and I think Mancala or something. And I told other people they could bring games too. And so then when we got there, it was raining. It was kind of misting. We were like, oh no, this is a disaster. So we went to like this little overhang area, and we were kind of hanging out, which is where this photo is actually taken. And so, it wasn't a very big meet. It was 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. It was 9 people, and then I guess 10 for the person who took the photo. I don't really remember, which is kind of small. I mean, that's what we average with our virtual meets right now through the pandemic. We are now kind of more at a bigger level where I think our largest meet is like 30, 40 people. But that was pre-pandemic. That was like one of the last ones we had before the pandemic actually hit. And then with Blue Ridge FurFare, oh my god, it like exploded. Like, who would have thought having a furry convention in the same town would attract all of the furries to find your local group? I'm kidding, kind of. I don't know. I do blame a lot of WNC Furs' success in the past few years to BRFF, which I guess is, what you guys are all listening to right now, and how you're kind of finding out. If you didn't know about WNC Furs, now I guess you know about WNC Furs. I also do this panel a lot at other cons, so, you might have sat through this before. I'm sorry if you haven't. It's like the same content. Stop coming to my exact panels. But anyway, so after the first meet, it was kind of fun. It was kind of cool, and we were like, okay, we want to do this again, but how do we want to do it so that it's better? Because you always want to, like, improve things. So that brings us on the actual informational part of the panel. So there's different ways to plan a Furmeet that I've kind of found that work. The first one was like a voting system. When we were smaller, we used to have people vote on like what they wanted to do. Like, did you want to go bowling? Do you want to see a movie? Do we just want to meet up and have dinner at a restaurant or something? This kind of works, and you kind of figure out what the group likes and doesn't like, and like what they want to do and not do. However, it is very time consuming of setting up the polls. We used Facebook polls at the time, but now Telegram has polls too. So that would be kind of cool to also have on there. I think Discord also might have polls. There's also a few websites that will just let you make polls. I'm a huge Google Drive person, so I would probably set up a Google Drive form now at this point. But back in the day, I wasn't as into that as much. So then you can always do that. Then there's the scheduled ones. You just kind of pick some stuff you want to do that kind of works. Once a month is good if you're just starting out. WNC Furs does 2 meets a month, but I also have a lot of help running WNC Furs. So it's not always just me running the meets. Sometimes it's, other admins and stuff too, which is great. I've definitely found that running a good fur group kind of really relies on the fact that either you are very dedicated to it or you have people who are helping you. Admins can also pick. This is kind of what we do now with WNC Furs, is we have a meeting at the beginning of the year, and we plan out every single fur meet that will happen throughout the year. Which obviously it's flexible, if it's coming up time for like a meet and you're like, ooh, I don't know if that's really going to work anymore, you can just kind of pick a different one. And, it gives you an idea. As long as it's there on the calendar, it'll kind of remind you of, be like, okay, this weekend's coming up. Are we still wanting to do this meet? Is it still good? And then you can always discuss with your admins. Finding other people to help you is really, really key in a lot of this. And it can be kind of tricky in the furry fandom to find people that actually want to do stuff and want to help. A lot of people just want to have the fun part. They don't want to have the responsibilities, but it's possible. If you look, you would be able to find people that will help you. But yeah, so we all kind of pick different meets. We plan out through the year, and then that's it. We have our whole schedule planned out. Getting art and stuff for them also really helps. We have a few admins who do art really well. Reese actually is our main artist for WNC Furs, and oh my god, they're amazing. You guys probably know them as Astro Plants. They're our featured artist this year at BRFF. I know. There's so much connection between WNC Furs and BRFF. I don't know what to tell you. But yeah, that's kind of how we've always kind of planned them, is we all pick stuff that we like, figure out where it makes sense, try and kind of theme it. Like, you don't want to be having a picnic in the winter, and during the winter you want to think of like indoor stuff. And not all fur meets need to have fursuits. Sometimes you can have fursuit events. Normally what we do, since we have 2 meets a month, is one of them will be fursuit allowed, and then the other one is not fursuit allowed. We haven't really figured out how to make that work with virtual meets yet. But virtual meets are a whole different ball game. But they actually can be kind of fun if you know how to like utilize them, because then you're not limited to people who do live in your area, and you can go to other groups fur meets that are virtual that you might not live near, and then you don't have to worry about driving 4 hours or whatever. And so yeah, that's kind of how we plan it. It's just kind of like, okay, I want to do this. This works on this day. Okay, cool, this works. And then always kind of take note on how popular was the meet. Did people seem to be having fun? Was it a good idea for this meet? Did no one show up? There will always be meets where people don't show up. I have had many meets where people don't show up, and I'm like, that's fine. I'm here. I had a good time by myself. It's cool. I one time had a fur meet at a local farm, and only 2 other furries showed up, and we still had a nice time. I mean, it was, a little chill meet. We walked around the farm, ate some nice food. I got to bring home some sausage. Going to local places is also really kind of cool. Like, you might not realize what's in your city until you start looking up different things that you might like. It sounds really cheesy, but kind of treating them like field trips is kind of how I've started looking at it. And I'm like, oh, we get to go to field trip. It's like summer camp, but for adults who wish they were animals. So I'm not sure if they're actually adults or not. I kid. I mean, sometimes you do have children show up at these. WNC Furs is very minor friendly, which I know is kind of tricky to do. I am friends with a lot of moms. I have many parents' cell phone numbers in my phone for the minors that are in our group, and I have some on my Facebook page, and we chat and everything. But I think it's really important to just kind of give a space for furries to meet. Whether they take advantage of having that space and that option to meet and socialize with others in the group is kind of up to them. But I feel good just giving a space and providing that opportunity for people to meet others that are like them, especially if it's locals. Because, like, even if they don't show up to a meet, they might meet some other local in a chat or something and become best friends. And I know some people have found their partners through our group and stuff like that. And I always think that's really cool. It's kind of that's the reward for me, is knowing that I've made a space and an opportunity for other people to meet people like them, and it helps them feel less alone in the world. And now, one of my favorite things in the world besides furries is social media. As much as I say I love social media, I actually don't use a lot of these, personally, and I use them for different fur groups. I have so many different Twitter accounts, it's not even funny. I help run so many Facebook groups, it's not even funny. And I feel like as soon as someone is like, I need help with a fur group social media thing, and I'm like, I got you. I know all about this. Let me help you. Let me show you what you're doing. It's one of my favorite things. I think it's great. I think social media is great. Furries were created and I wouldn't say created, but they were popularized on the internet. Because we're so spread out as individuals. We're not local. We're all over the world. We're everywhere. And I think that's a really neat thing. And also, social media helps advertise your meets. I also love advertising. You ever need any advertising help? Let me know. I will give you some advice. I will make you a free little advertising plan like I'm in college. My degree is actually in social media. Like, I have a mass communications degree, so it's like journalism and social media, and mine's very social media focused. My college thesis actually was on furries, so I'm technically, I guess, qualified for a lot of what I'm saying. But I don't know. It was fun. It was good. But I have added a few to the slide that I haven't had before. Twitch is a new popular one that a lot of people are using. And Discord, as much as it drives me nuts, is also really popular. I am struggling to learn it. I'm trying my best. I don't know why I'm struggling so much to learn this platform, but I'm really trying. Facebook and Twitter and Instagram are always my go-tos. Those three are probably my favorite. I personally really only use Facebook, but I used to use Instagram a lot too back in the day. And then Telegram is also a super, super popular one. Honestly, I think it's better than Discord. You guys can come for me. I don't care. I like Telegram over Discord. You will never take away my Telegram. Fur Affinity is kind of one that is kind of old school. I don't know if it's super popular anymore, but I would say it's better than mail listings. I don't know if any of you are old enough to remember back when a lot of this furry stuff started, but a lot of it was like mail listings, like in the mail or like in your email. You would get a little newsletter on like furry events happening. Really old school. I don't know if any of you look into the furry history or have seen any furry, documentaries talking about it, but it's kind of cool. YouTube is one that I have found can be pretty useful if you have a videographer in your group that likes to record videos. You can always, make little meat mashups and put them up there. People are always kind of looking for furry content to consume. So just creating any form of furry content, kind of putting it out there is good. Honestly, I could probably utilize the Fur Affinity more if we took some of Reese's artwork and put it on the Fur Affinity. I might need to get on that, actually, and do that. That sounds like a good idea. See, this is why we do this. You're just coming up with more ideas for me to advertise. Furzu is a really good social media for furries. It is 18 plus, though. I just always like to give it a good shout out. If you are under 18, there is Furry Amino, which I hear is pretty good as well. I'm just a little biased on the Furzu side of things because I really like it. But yeah, I mean, utilize your social medias, figure it out. Even if your personal stuff is pretty popular, always give a shout out there. Finding pretty popular furries to give your group shout outs or to be like, I'm going to this meet is always really helpful with things like that. So once the meet is advertised and it's finally time and it's the day of the meet, one thing you need to keep in mind is it doesn't matter what time the fur meet is. It could be at 5 o'clock. It could be at 8 o'clock. There will be someone who will show up 3 hours early. Sometimes I even feel like, okay, I'm here, I'm early. It's like an hour till. Perfect. I'm making sure we're all set up, that everything's okay. And then someone's also already here already. I don't know why people show up so early to fur meets, but they always do. So, be nice to the new, to the people who show up early. They're just really excited most of the time, or it's their first time, or they have anxiety, same. And so, they wanted to make sure everything was okay before they showed up and everything like that. So it's not always a bad thing. Sometimes if the venue's a little then it's a little confusing, but as long as you're communicating with your group and you're like, hey, I'm here, I'm over by the lion statue or whatever, it's pretty okay. And, normally the people who are there early help you set up. Furries are some of the most generous, nice people in the world. I've had some meets at my house when we were a little bit smaller, and they're always like, oh, let me help you clean up and everything. And I'm like, oh, no, it's fine. You guys just go, I'll clean up. But they're always like, no, we want to help. And it's always really nice. Everyone kind of ends up being like a big family if you run this enough times and stuff like that. We're all here for a common purpose, so it's all okay. Park meets are really common. I always say to make sure you bring water and snacks. A lot of fursuiters will get all excited that they're like, oh yay, we get to wear our fursuits and stuff, and just make sure you bring water and stuff. Normally when fur meets happen, I will make sure that I have I don't want to call it a go bag, but kind of I have this bag that I have all of either lost and found items from previous meets that I'll keep in there, badges and whatnot. I'll keep some water in there. I'll keep some, little first aid kit with Band-Aids and stuff like that, which is always really cool. sometimes it's good to have it and, not need it, and then need it and not have it. Normally, Furmeets are also kept in an area where if you need to go get something, you can, and it's not too big of a deal. Just, I've found that you will need random items all the time. Like a sewing kit isn't something you would think you would need going out for like a dinner meet, but you never know. Someone will lose a button, someone's paw rip, crazy stuff always happens. I always have my bag with me. I even bring it to cons. Most of the time it's the one that, I keep the little extra kit in my fursuit box for cons and stuff. Always be friendly and always greet new people. If there's someone you don't know and you're like, are they a furry? Normally, furries are pretty easy to identify when it comes to fur meets. We all got our badges, our tails, our ears. Also, if you've been in the fandom, you can kind of almost spot a furry at this point. Like, I don't know if anyone else does this, but if you're walking out in, like, normal public and you're just like, that person kind of looks like a furry. And you're like, I think they're a furry. You eventually get used to picking out people and stuff like that. I always try and greet newcomers, and then I'll talk to them a little bit. I'll introduce them to, like, people their age. Like, if there's a minor that shows up with their parent, I'll always be like, oh, here's our other minors, and, like, not drop them off, but, I always introduce the other minors to each other, and then I always hang back and talk to the parents. The parents always appreciate it. I've heard all kinds of questions from parents. I love parents. Normally, I host a panel for the parents where I just let them grill me for an hour, and they can ask whatever they want, and I'm pretty open about it. For the most part, we keep our groups very family friendly, and I'm really happy with the bunch that we have. Is never really trying to push that line, but sometimes you do get that. It just be honest with parents. I mean, if they ask a question, just be like, yeah, there can be some not kid friendly stuff, but we don't let it happen at meets. We don't let it happen in our chats. We try and keep a safe place for everyone, and it's important for minors who are in the fandom to have other people their age that they really like, and it's hard for them sometimes to make friends, I feel, and so when you put them in this group with other people who are, weird and kind of different like them with the furry thing, it's nice for them to also have weird people to hang out with, and I think it's just really good for the teenagers especially to have some kind of older adults to, like, help them along and stuff like that. Like, I can't tell you how many times I've helped them fill out college applications and watch them grow from being like a little 14-year-old, and then they get their license and you're like, yay, you can, like, drive to meets now. And I do miss the parents when they can finally drive themselves, and I'm like, oh man, I'm not gonna have your mom to chat with and stuff like that. But they're always good. Never be intimidated by parents. If you go and make them feel just as welcome as their kid, they're gonna bring their kid more and stuff like that. And I always have a great time. Also, introduce parents to other parents. It really is helpful to them, because then they don't feel awkward sitting here watching a fur meet happen while their kid has a good time. They can just chat and hang out with the other parents, and it's just good to make sure everyone feels included. Even if you have some shyer people, I like to just go and sit next to them or whatever and figure out what kind of stuff they're into, and maybe introduce them to other furs that might be into stuff like that. Like, if they like drawing, go drop them off with, like, the other people that are doodling and stuff like that. Tell them their badge is cute or whatever. It's really easy. But, just making sure you have fun and everything is okay and you kind of have an idea of what you're doing. I'd never make it a strict itinerary, but kind of having an idea of, like, okay, for an hour, we'll go ahead and do this. And then for the next hour, we'll maybe try and change the topic. Also, don't force it. If your group's fine, just hanging out, chilling, you don't need to bring out any games or force them to do anything that they don't want. We're all really just here, have a good time, get out of the house, hang out with other people who are like us that maybe we only get to talk to online and stuff like that. So contacting the venues. This is probably my least favorite. I'll go ahead and say it's my least favorite part of Furmeets, because I have a lot of anxiety, which not a lot of people probably realize, because I'll get up here, I'll do panels, I'll host art meets, I will, help out with conventions, I'll talk to almost anyone who talks to me, but I'm not the best with talking to people who aren't furries. I don't know, I just feel like I just don't know what our common ground would be on it and stuff like that. But contacting venues can be a little bit daunting if you're not used to it. Honestly, my biggest suggestion is to find someone who is comfortable doing that and putting them on your admin team. I have some people who are really great at that, and most of the time I'm just like, hey, so we want to go to the bowling alley. Do you want to call them and see if we can have fursuits? I've briefed a lot of them on like how to do it, and most of the time using the word fursuit can kind of make people feel a little weird. So I go with like costumes or mascot suits, and stuff like that. And a lot of times they're actually pretty cool about it. Like, we have a trampoline park here in town, and when we went, it was initially no fursuits allowed because it was like an active thing and I didn't want people overheating and dying, and I wasn't sure how the venue would feel about it. But they were actually really cool about it. Like, we had some people show up still with their fursuits and they were wearing it, and the staff were like, oh my god, this is so cool. Like, what are you guys? I love this. And so now whenever we go back, unfortunately COVID happened. But when we get to go back again, I'll be like, yeah, wear your fursuit. It'll be great. The photos will be so cute. We'll have a great time and stuff like that. And, just calling the venue a lot of times ahead of time, especially if you're going to have more than 8 people, is always kind of a good idea because you don't want to rush a place. We have accidentally done that a few times, and we always felt bad. But I mean, sometimes the place is like really excited about it. Like, I found this little gem mining place in town, and like they had one little table thing where you could like buy a little box and like sort through it in the little water trough that they had. And so many of us showed up. I think it was only like 20 people, but to this little shop that was like a lot of people, they were like, oh, no, we'll like, we have other troughs, hold on. And they were like moving books and merchandise off of these troughs that were like covered in dust that they hadn't used in a long time. And the 2 people who ran that shop were like so excited, and they were like, what are you guys? Like, why are you guys all together? Like, what's going on? And I went and I started talking to him, and I was explaining like, oh, we're like a meetup group. We like to like hang out with each other and go do things, and we all have, like, spirit animals that we all kind of identify with, and we're just a group of people who just want to, like, hang out for an afternoon and have a nice time. And as I talked to them, I opened up a little bit more about the whole furry thing, and they were kind of older, so they didn't super understand what I was talking about, but they did understand that we were making them a lot of money that day. And so that was really nice. But then other times we've gone to, like, the Retrocade is a really cool place here in Asheville, and it's a bar arcade, but anyone can go in before 9 p.m. So we really like to go have meets there, and it's in this part of Asheville where there's like a sandwich shop next to it, and there's like some tea places, and there's little restaurants and stuff you can go to after it. And we didn't really have that many RSVP, so we didn't really think much of it. And then all of a sudden it became our biggest meet with like 38 people or something like that, and we took over this place. And we felt so bad when we went to the sandwich shop next door because we were just line out the door, and we were like, ugh, we're so sorry. I mean, the business owners are like, yeah, money, but then like the staff, we felt really bad. But everyone tipped really well, and we made sure we didn't leave the place a mess, and we made sure we cleaned up after ourselves and stuff like that. And sometimes you can't really avoid that, especially as you're growing your meets. Like, you'll start off with just a few people, and then next thing you know, it's like 20 people, and you're like, oh, I thought we only had 8 people RSVP. People don't like to RSVP. People also like to RSVP for just themselves and then bring 2 friends, which is fine. We're all for expanding places and stuff like that. One thing I do like is if we had a good experience at one place, try and go back to them. The more you go back to a place and you introduce yourself and they kind of get used to you going there, they kind of look forward to you being there, and it's really nice. One of the issues with COVID is we've lost a bond with a lot of places, and some of the places we had bonds with have actually closed down because of all the shutdowns and stuff. And we're hoping they'll come back, but we know a few of them aren't going to, and that really, really kind of sucks. But, it's nice when you finally have a place that really, really likes you, and you get to, like, come back, and they're like, oh, the furries are back. We love the furries. We have such a good time with you guys. And it really makes you feel good when the business that you're going to is really nice. So dealing with the public isn't always bad. Like, sometimes when you're having like a fur meet in a public place, you're gonna attract attention. I mean, you're gonna see a big fluffy cute fursuit and you're gonna be like, what is that? Or you're gonna see all these people with tails and like, little animal characters hanging on their lanyards and stuff like that. Fur meets are kind of pretty obvious to distinguish for the most part. And so whenever non-furs kind of get the attention of your group and they're going to come over and they're going to start asking questions, I always try and keep a lookout for them so that I'm the one talking. to the non-furs. Not saying I don't trust the average furry, but you know, they're not running it. They're not going to know exactly what to say. Uncle Kage has a few good lectures on how to deal with the public if you've ever listened to him talk or gone to any of his panels and stuff like that. And, you know, obviously they're either going to not know anything and you're going to be like, oh, we're just, you know, people with really hardcore spirit animal beliefs and we just want to hang out and have some fun. Or we're just a group of friends who really like animals is normally how I go ahead and explain it to them. And parents will want to get pictures. People want to get pictures. Drunk people love getting pictures. I don't know what about being drunk makes you want to hang out with a fursuiter, but I guess it's in the culture. Occasionally they do bring up the adult side. I normally am just like, that's not what we're here for. We're in public, we're hanging out, there's minors here, we're just a group of friends. We're not doing anything bad, we're not doing anything weird. It'll always come up. Most of the time we can't really escape it. It's getting a lot better. It's definitely gotten a lot better. I haven't gotten as much weird comments like that in the past few years than I did when we first started doing all of this. So that's just something to pay attention to. Also, as you get to know your group, you're gonna have the people who are troublemakers. And it's not that, you know, they're bad enough that you kick out, but you never know what's gonna come out of your mouth, and you're always just like, why did you say that? Please just shut up. And occasionally they will also want to talk to the non-furs that, you know, come over and try and talk, and you're just like, and normally I just try and, you know, make my admins aware of like, hey, if you see non-furs, can you like go gather that one guy who just doesn't know what's coming out of his mouth and just distract him so he doesn't go approach the other ones. And if people are trying to get pictures and stuff, just go get, you know, like the fursuiters you trust to not be weird with the public and go get them and be like, yeah, here, I got you. Like, come take photos with them. They're really great. They're really nice. And then they'll know how to like handle it a little bit better. And it's not as bad as it used to be. It's getting a lot better, and I almost kind of miss dealing with the public. With at least our virtual spaces, we haven't really had any problems with people coming in. Thankfully, we've been pretty locked down, so we haven't had any troll issues either. But, you know, it's just something to pay attention to. Keep an eye on when you're running a group. Make sure your other admins or mods are aware of how people might be and stuff like that. I think I already touched on the minors with their parents, but I love talking to the parents. They always have interesting things to say. Sometimes they'll be like, does my child have to pay to come to these Furmeets? And I'm like, no, you have to pay admission if we like go to the zoo or something, but there's no like membership fees or anything like that. I'm like, we're not that official. We're literally just people coordinating to hang out in the same places. But yeah, I mean, that's not the worst part of having to do all of this, and sometimes it can be kind of fun. So I know I've talked about a few different times about how there's different kinds of furries and different people at Furmeets and stuff like that. And I think it's kind of important to kind of know the differences. I mean, if you're in the furry fandom, you pretty much know the different types of furries that are out there. And, you know, they all kind of take a different approach when it comes to Furmeets. And I'm not saying I like to herd them all into their little corners. I mean, obviously you can still mingle within all of them, but it's important to kind of also cater to all of the different groups when you're at a Furmeet and stuff like that. The artists are always really the easiest ones to spot. They're almost always, you know, wanting to draw and stuff like that. And at art meets and even dinner meets, most meets, I feel like some of them will just always have a pad come out of nowhere and they'll just start drawing and doodling, and you get some really cool art that way. If you ever see like a sketch you like or something, or you see someone that you do like their art of, always make sure you get their name. Having art to attach with your Furmeets and stuff like that can really help boost the attention that they get. And you know, you can always pay them to be like, hey, if I had like, you know, can you do a logo for me? Or if we do a lot of movie meets, can you maybe like do a movie kind of commission so that we can reuse it for meets and stuff like that. And most of the time, you know, they're just really happy that you're even like acknowledging that their art's really good. So I really like making sure that all the artists also kind of know each other, because then they can always team up and like kind of do stuff together. And they'll almost if you just put a sketch pad down, that's how you find them. They'll always appear. The really excited ones are, I always put this in here because, obviously most people should be excited to go to Furmeets. They're really exciting. But there's always that one that wants to like attack the fursuiters, or they're just so happy to be there. And you're like, oh my God, you have so much energy. Please calm down. They're always really great. I like talking to them at the beginning of Furmeets and stuff. They get me really hyped. They really bring the energy to the room, and I absolutely love that. And they don't exactly get along with the really shyer ones, but most of the time if you put the little shy ones in a corner, even if they're quietly all sitting at the same table, they're all fun. They might pull out a Nintendo Switch, start, trading friend codes or whatever is on the Nintendo Switch. I don't have one. I just really want one. And they're always really nice and stuff. Especially I think it's funny when someone will be so talkative in the chats and they'll like talk nonstop, and then you'll see them at the meet and they're just like quietly sitting off to the side watching everyone, and you see their badge and you're like, oh my God, that's that dude that never not has something to say. Why is he so quiet? And like just going up to him and talking. I was actually thinking the other day about how much I miss, like we get to know each other in chats, and you're like, oh, they're a tiger, and then you see them in person and you're like, no, that's not my tiger friend. What do you mean? Like that's not what you look like in real life. I don't understand. And the joke of, you never know what your friends look like. So when you go to meets or cons, you're always like looking at their chest for their badges, and you like look at them and then you're like, oh, hey, we've been friends for like years. What's up? That's what you actually look like? Odd, like we're not actual animal people in real life. I don't know. I really miss that. I always have a great time matching the actual person to the fursona. It's always really fun. Parents and minors I've touched on a lot. I feel like if you're running a group, you really got to focus on the parents and minors, because that's the next generation. We gotta help cultivate them. Also, the fun thing as the furry community gets older is we're starting to have furries who are actual parents, and then they're bringing their kids with them, and you're like, oh, is the baby gonna turn into a furry? And, we always have a good time talking about that stuff. One of the guys who actually runs BRFF, Major, we all jokingly call his kid Minor, and we're hoping one day that Minor will grow up to be a little furry. And his wife is also really great. They're both awesome people. I love both of them. But I can't wait for their kid to grow up and be like, please be a furry, please be a furry. Like, that would be devastating if both of, his parents are furries, and then he's like, nah. That's lame. That would be so sad. Poppy furs kind of tend to go hand in hand with fursuiters. They want that picture. They want to have the attention on them a lot of times, which is fine. I mean, they're there. They're part of the fandom. They like the attention. I love fursuiting. That's actually my fursuit, my first fursuit right there. I have another black one too that I absolutely adore, and I miss having an opportunity to fursuit. But a lot of times fur meets do equal a fursuiting opportunity, so they're gonna want to take out this thing that they spent thousands of dollars on and finally have a good time with it outside of a convention with their friends and taking photos and stuff like that. Park meets are always great for fursuits because you get some really cool photo op opportunities, and you can walk around, take different photos and stuff like that. I think we have a Christmas meet, a holiday meet technically, that's at the Arboretum here in Asheville, and they will like dress up all the plants and stuff with like Christmas lights, and they got pretty lights just kind of everywhere. If you can get a good enough camera, you can get some really cool shots in fursuit with them. And I really want to bring my fursuit out there one year and just have a great photo shoot and get some really cool stuff. I also just really like the Christmas lights. It's a great thing to go through. And that's also a good meet idea. Looking at some themed stuff, even if it's not your holiday that you don't celebrate, it's still fun, to get some themed photos and stuff for you to use as profile pictures or just to use for future meets and stuff like that. A lot of these photos that I've used here, photos that I've taken or people from the group have taken and have let WNC Furs use over the years, which is really great. And you get to look back and you're like, oh man, I remember that meet. That looks so good. The adult-rated furries, I tend to not hang out in that crowd so much, and especially running a family-friendly group, I tend to not run into them as much as I would assume most people and stuff like that. just making sure they, stay appropriate. Don't be yelling about stuff they shouldn't be yelling, kind of a thing. The phrase I like to use a lot is, if you wouldn't say it to your grandma, don't say it in the chat or at Furmeets. And a lot of times they'll be like, well, my grandma's okay with it. And I'm like, on average, if you wouldn't say it to an elderly lady standing in the store, don't say it at a Furmeet. Like, just try and make sure they kind of keep it together. But also, if they, say some stuff, don't be mean about it either. Just correct them. Be like, hey, PG-13, guys, don't forget, PG-13 is kind of what I like to say all the time. But yeah, I mean, obviously there's more different kinds of furries and stuff that you will encounter at different Furmeets and stuff too, but really getting to know your group, knowing who's in your group, knowing the different people in your group, learning all 12 different personas and names of the, people in your group. It'll come in handy. It'll be good for you. I know it sounds like a lot of work getting to know like 60 different people, but it's a lot easier than you'll find if you spend the proper amount of time mingling with your group. You tend to just naturally get to know a lot of them, and a lot of them are great. They're all different, and they're all great in their own ways. So, if you've spent any amount of time in the fandom, you know that furries and drama go hand in hand, unfortunately. And running a group, you're going to come across a lot of problems, or at least people that want to tell you all of these problems that are going on. I tend to let most people who run groups kind of decide how they want to handle the drama and the problems. Obviously, if anything legal-wise kind of comes up, just encourage people to kind of report it to the proper authorities and stuff like that. We're not the cops. We're not here to police the world and stuff like that, but we are here to kind of keep a safe space and to provide a good space for people to come and hang out and socialize. And it's important to keep that space, making sure that people are comfortable in the group. So if you have someone who's repeatedly making people uncomfortable and you've had to talk to them a lot of times, that is probably when it's time to talk to your admins about kicking them out. We kind of have a 3-strike rule that we follow. And sometimes we're a little bit more lenient, like if you just slip up 3 times and you're really apologetic, then that's fine. But if you're proving that this is going to be repeated behavior, it's best to unfortunately just tell them they're not allowed to be in the group. And I know that sucks. I know it's a hard thing to say and to do and to be firm, and no one wants to be the bad parent when it comes to a lot of the things. But if you're running a group, people are going to tell you like, hey, this person in your group said this, or hey, this person in your group did that. And a lot of time I like to stay as third person as I can. I like to not try and get involved as much. Like, I'm not going to go talk to someone unless it's something that happened in like our group, or I feel it is important that, maybe they just need a talking to and they don't realize what they're doing is like wrong and stuff like that. It's really good when you start a group like this to kind of write out your rules, talk to your admins, figure out where everyone's comfortable and kind of stuff like that. And then once you have your rules, just be like, sorry, that's the rules. That's what the rules say. That's how we have to enforce the rules equally to stay unbiased towards everyone. And it's never a fun thing. I've definitely had to ban some people over the years, and they'll hate you when you kick them out. They're not going to be nice. They're not going to be like, okay, fine. I mean, sometimes they are, but a lot of times it can cause some real problems, and it's not fun, especially when it can come and affect your real life and stuff like that. But at that point, I say contact, the authorities, be like, look, this is what's happening, move on. Also, the block button is your friend. I have come to learn this over the years, that if, you have someone who's harassing you that you kicked out, just block them. Just make it so they can't talk to you. If they make alt accounts, report them and block them. And hopefully, they eventually get tired of it if you're not playing the game back with them, and they'll just go away. It is important that if someone is banned and your group wants to know why, or if your group is still being harassed of them, to kind of make it known in your group, not like, constant every day. But if the person comes up, be like, oh yeah, hey, this is why they're not allowed. I tend to take that into DMs, so you're not like publicly shaming them and stuff like that, depending on how serious of a thing it is. I also tend to just say no drama in the chats, and if people are trying to talk about drama in the chats, either say take it to DM or contact an admin. And most of the time it'll stop there, or they'll, message you in person, and you can take the information and talk to your admin team about it. You don't have to do this by yourself. You don't have to make up the decision on banning someone by yourself. You can talk to your other admins and see how they feel, and having admins that are from different walks of life and from different opinions and values is also really important. I know some of my admins like to butt heads every now and then, but, it keeps a variety of opinions in our group, and I feel it makes us more fair when it comes to kind of handling different drama and situations and stuff that comes up in the group. It's never an easy thing. If you ever need, advice or whatever, you can always contact me. I'm always open to talk to it. I have come across almost all situations you can think of. I also, for my real life job, moderate some websites and stuff like that. So I do actually know the laws when it comes to a lot of these kinds of things as well. And I can help you when it comes to reporting or helping make a good decision if you don't know. I'm always open to that. I'm also open to know who's, causing problems in the areas and stuff like that, because often furry leaders do talk. If you run a group, you're going to tend to find that other people who run group want to talk to you about, oh, how do you do this? How do you do that? Oh, hey, by the way, we got rid of this guy for this reason. If he shows up in your group, just keep this in mind. But don't be pushy about it. If someone's like, okay, well, we'll give him a chance in our group, don't demonize them. Just be like, okay, I told you why we kicked him out. So, either take this information or don't, kind of a thing. I think sometimes people feel it's important to police the world, and it's not our job to police the world. Bad people are going to make it apparent that they're not a good person if you give them enough time to. And sometimes that's what you have to do so that you have a more solid reason for kicking them out of the group. And I have found that, very few people who are going to be problematic are sneaky about it, or they're low-key about it, and they'll make it pretty obvious. And you'll be able to be like, look, you have this reputation, and now you're acting like this in my chat. I'm sorry. We can't keep you in the group anymore. And, sometimes they're understanding, sometimes they're not. Also, getting screenshots and asking for records and stuff like that is also important. Don't just go off of hearsay. Most of the time, you'll be able to see the behavior yourself, and you'll be like, yep, they are still acting like that. Okay, I'm sorry, you gotta go. It is the second worst thing probably about running a group is you're going to get dragged into a lot of this drama. But I think if you handle it correctly, it'll work out and it'll be okay. We're here to have a good time, and I feel the rewards on this tend to outweigh the negatives of having to deal with situations like this. Anyway, on a more unique note, I've never actually gotten to cover this, so forgive me, it's a first time. I jokingly called this the pandemic special, virtual meets, because it's something we've started doing, and I actually really have enjoyed them. Even with shutdown, we thought it was still really important to keep having virtual meets and to give that space for people to still hang out with each other, especially because, we can't really hang out in person. And I know I'm not alone in saying that last year's BRFF was the last time I saw a lot of my friends. So the year anniversary is coming up of not seeing a lot of my friends in person. And one thing that has still made me happy is when I get to hang out with my friends virtually, even if it's, we don't get to see each other. Most of the time it's just voice chat or we're hanging out all doing the same thing. It's really nice to still kind of have that bonding with them. Finding things to do online is a little bit tricky unless you are a little bit creative. One thing we like to do is we like to all watch videos together or movies together. That's actually what that art is from, is I made a silly YouTube furry playlist with lots of different content in it. And we all kind of watched it screen share over a Discord call, and it was kind of fun. It was like hanging out with your friends, just goofing off, watching different furry videos and stuff like that. We've had some virtual art meets where you can draw.chat as one. Agio, Aggio, is another one that we've used, and you can all draw on the same like art pad or whatever. And so we'll play different games. Commissioner from Hell is a really fun one that we all like to play, and you just kind of throw different stuff out and people try and catch up and draw the fursona all weird and stuff like that. Pictionary is a really easy one that we all like playing. I think we've played kind of hangman variants, and so that we're not hanging people. It'll be like, we don't want to complete the flower, and there's ways to make it a little bit more kid-friendly than some of the games that we've played in the past, or all just doodling. You get a theme, you're like, okay, we're only going to draw cats on this page, we're only going to color using the orange pencil on this page, and stuff like that. Those are really fun. I know Jackbox games is a really popular one. Watching people stream games is a really popular one. I absolutely love when we all get together and create different Among Us rooms, and we'll have little hangout sessions like that. You can hop on Discord and play them. You can just be like, hey, this is the room we're using right now. If you want to join the code, feel free. I have noticed that online stuff doesn't get as much of attention as IRL. That's just kind of expected, which is fine. It's expected. I've heard of the 30% rule. So whatever your normal attendance is, which for WNC Furs I'd say is probably on average about 30. So, whatever that math is, I'm not good at math. But, it does follow along the few times I've run the numbers on it. And I'm just like, yeah, that makes sense. Karaoke is a huge one. We actually just had a karaoke meet. That's real fun. We'll just get on Discord with each other and we'll all just sing our best attempts at many of the songs. I tend to just sing a bunch of Disney songs because I don't really know much else outside of that. So it's fun. I also like, just having themed Discord chats. Like, I'll pretend to be like, okay, we're having dinner, guys. Okay, we're gonna eat ice cream together. But really just hanging out on Discord, chatting, doing different stuff. It really makes a difference. Even if it's only for 30 minutes. I tend to only have the virtual meets go for an hour, but it still gives you something to do, and everyone can attend. We've had people who have never attended the IRL meets, and they'll attend the virtual meets because they're like, yeah, I don't have to drive. I don't have to awkwardly explain to my parents why I want to go do something. I can just log in and hang out and have a nice time and stuff like that. We actually kind of liked them so much that we're talking about adding them in as supplemental meets. So we'll have 2 IRL meets when it comes back, and then we'll have 1 virtual meet, or we'll just have 1 IRL meet and 1 virtual meet until things are more okay. We're still doing virtual meets. We still haven't switched over to IRL meets. We're waiting for the world to be a little bit safer, because as much as we all miss each other, it's better to wait and, hang out online than it is to risk getting everyone sick and stuff like that. And there's also VR. There's a few other furry things I feel I'm probably not thinking of, but if you're creative, you'll probably find a thing to do. But really just hanging out, finding a good way to just get people to come online and talk at the same time is really good. I know the artists love to use our stream abilities in the Discord, and they'll be like, I'm gonna stream my art for a little bit if anyone wants to come hang out and chat and stuff like that. And I know some people will be editing videos or doing homework. I have seen some of our minors get together and do homework together, which is really great too. I'll hop in every now and then and help. But it's really just about providing a nice space for the community to hang out with each other and to meet new friends, reconnect with old friends, and just give them some space to just be themselves for a little bit. It's always really nice. So, it looks like we're getting close to the end of the time, which is good. I'm glad I've planned this out almost correctly, and I hope I've touched all of the questions. The most important thing to running a fur group is to make sure that you stay committed to it. Make it a part of your daily routine. Make sure you're actually committed to it, or you have enough admins that all of you can take turns kind of being responsible for it. You get as much as you put into this kind of thing. If you don't spend that much time on hosting and advertising and running different meets and stuff, it's not going to be as good. You got to really dedicate a good amount of your time to it. I'll admit I started a lot of this when I was in college and I had the free time to do it. And as I get older, I haven't had as much time, but I've I really owe a lot. I owe most of my friendships. I owe even my current job to running this group, and it's really worth it. It's worth it when you see people who joined when they were in high school and now they're, off to college and they're out of college and they're like starting their own lives, and you'll see so many people come and go through the group, but it's just nice to know that you gave them an opportunity to meet friends and to meet other people when they just didn't have that in their lives. And it'll be worth it. You just got to really stick with it, and you got to make sure that you're doing all that you can really with it, and you just want the best for it. Don't do this in an attempt to become popular. Don't do this if you want to make money off of it. You're gonna spend a lot of money on it, and you're not gonna really get any of it back, but it's really rewarding if you can really stick with it. But in case I didn't answer any of the questions, or you still have questions, feel free to contact me. I'm totally down talking about this kind of thing, helping people out to start a group in their area. I think it's really important for people to have a bunch of groups, and I wish there were more groups. Also, if you're looking for a local group, feel free to reach out to me. I know a ton of different groups, and if I don't know where a group is, I can either point you in the right direction of someone who might, or I can always, maybe help encourage you to start a group in your area, or point you towards other people that are also kind of wanting to start a group. Helping out, volunteering, reaching out to your admin, saying you want to help in any way, it's really important, and it's good, and it all really helps build the furry community to be all that it is. All of this started in a really small online space, and now we have turned into this huge thing that is just absolutely amazing. But yeah,